Mm-hmm. Back at her again. As you can tell, the Whiskey Zulu has really come up and started to smell, made the room smell even a little bit, which is very peculiar, as though, as small as it is, also I really didn't expect the autoflower to smell quite as pungent. When you get up close to it, you can smell it, but like from here, I don't really smell it. When I walk into the room, I can smell it. That's a good sign for me personally. But I did just read somewhere, and I saw this video of a few guys that I respect, besmirching autoflowers, saying it's just generally shit to grow, and that's the reason why I'm not really interested in autoflowers. But I did purchase 2 packs, or I got a freebie and had purchased 2 packs of this here ogreberry, who is about, I would say, just about over a week old at this point. Let me check. Yeah, about a week old at this point. Looking still kind of messed up. Like the pictures I have up of it on the channel. I will post after this. You can see the twisted neck. Not a very good sign. I've been training this one. This other auto, Whiskey Zulu. And it looks good. Looks fine. Looks like it's taking to the training quite well. See that stem? It's split in a certain way. Just the sheath. But that's a good sign. It's growing towards the light as I want it to grow. I want them to grow up toward the light and then overtake the Girl Crush just by a little bit while it veggies, and then I'll top her, like, to keep her small. I think I'll top her like 4 times. Maybe 3 times. 3 times, because 4 times is, by then these will be out and I'll be able to smoke these. And then I'll have about 4 clones, or sorry, 4 to 7 clones, I'd say, that I'm going to run outside of this baby. In addition to this one, whenever she gets big enough, I'll go out and show you guys the plot I just made. So, like, around 5 or 6 plants in there, depending on which ones survive, as well as bottom. You know, I'll take strong leaders from the bottom if they're just not big enough. You know, they're just not doing it what they need to be doing. And then I'll have about, I'd say, somewhere between 8 and 16 tops on this one. I do not know if I'll top it 3 or 4 times. I think it'll just be 3, though. And I will not top this one anymore. I filmed it and it's stunted, and so it just doesn't like anything. And so I'm just gonna grow it outside. If it ever reaches maturity, it seems like it's having some trouble getting there. Is it a fungus gnat? Yeah, that's a fungus gnat. In organic gardening, fungus gnats are not an issue. They seemingly just stay in the foliage, eating the decomposing organic matter, and they don't come and attack the leaves at all. So I don't really much mind them, but when I see them, I swat them. This is my fly swatter. It's my first plant I ever grew. It's grease monkey, and I think times blue cheese was bag seed. I grew it for 143 days until she was ready to harvest. Fantastic bud. I will be growing grease monkey again in the future, but probably to breed, considering that I really just didn't like that pine, myrcene earthiness. And yeah, Exotic Genetics has a lot of stuff out there for breeding purposes. So since it took a long fucking time, I'll definitely need to make sure the products that come out are not as long as this one. I mean, you can't wait 143 days for any bud. That was ridiculous. But adversity, and that's why I keep her around to swat flies. The other 2 bushes I grew in my first season, I decided to mulch and put back into the soil, and they have been completely eaten up by the soil already. It hasn't even been 2 months. The soil has completely chopped them up, which, you know, as you see, I've top dressed since then, and it's gone well, but I do like the idea of using the bodies of the plants to mulch, to top dress, and that's the organic matter that you need constantly. I will be breeding also, I think, since I have the seeds of this, 2 more seeds, which I don't expect either of them to pop, but Ogreberry. I have 1 more seed of the Bad Girl that I do intend to breed next season, and 1 more seed of the Special Queen. So we'll see if any of them have favorable genetic outcomes. But I just imagine that they're all going to have their own issues, considering I can see this is stunting like from really nothing. I guess overwatering, but I mean, this is bone dry right here. And I've watered this earlier today. Bone dry. So, very peculiar stunt that's going on right there. But I did stress it out with that early Fim, so, and I did drop it. That's another thing. I dropped it out of its pot and had to put it back in. And it seemingly had very, very small root development. So wasn't putting all my eggs in this basket, that's for sure. But I would have liked to see her do something. That's just a bad color. You know? That's the worst color I have ever seen from any plant I've ever grown. I can't even get a good picture of it, really. This is probably the best color of any plant I've ever seen. This one or that had a really nice color a week ago. Still has a really good color. Oh, and the grease monkey I grew. This grease monkey had just the best, a dark green color to its leaves. I smoked basically all the leaves too because they were delicious and had a ton of THC. They were frosty, all of them. So, grease monkey definitely has its uses, I guess, as a hash making plant, but I just need to make sure that if I breed it, it's not going to come out like that thing where it takes 143 flipping days to come to maturity. True maturity. Maybe if I had grown organic, then it wouldn't have happened. Because I grew in this pot. I grew 4 ounces, 4.5 ounces in a 3-gallon pot, 3 gallons of soil, and it grew under this light too. I grew it off to the side of the main light. Grew right here in the center. These 2 pots, and these 2 pots were over there, and it outperformed these 2 pots. This is the best pot I can tell already. It just maintains a nice moisture level, and the roots, I think, can go into the bottom and suck water. That there's like this extra water reserve right there. It catches the water, and I think that just makes the plant go fucking crazy. It has something to do with, like, I think Jeremy from Build a Soil says earth pots or something like that, where they have this access to water underneath, and it's like a plant that grows next to a stream, a natural stream. It can just access water whenever it wants it, and the nutrients it gets are not from the water itself, obviously, but from the soil, and then it just accesses the water whenever it wants. And so that's why I think that plant is already going so well and doing so, it's loving life. But this plant, I can expect to be very slow going. This Ogreberry, a week after pop, maybe a week and a few days. Yeah, a week. And that neck just really slowed it down. Twisted neck, very peculiar. Yeah, that's just a pretty little looking plant right there. It was said online that this plant smells like sweet diesel or kerosene, and is like one of the prettiest plants to grow in your garden. Right now, I'm seeing that it's got this broad leaf that I like. I do like broad leaves. Though, It looks kind of similar to that leaf, peculiar enough. But it does look like completely different genetics. We'll see. I guess I'll show you outside now. A little bit of a plot coming on over here, 5x8 plot. Get a good 5 to 7 plants in here. I guess I could extend it a little bit right there. Yeah, really. Because right now I'm planning on just growing from here, but you know, if I really want to put another plant right there, I guess I could. Just don't think that I would want to. I think that I'll just go with a few plants. Few, like just the ones that are strong. There's a lot of birds around here, so I think I'll use this. I found this old wire. Maybe I'll use it above the plants as they grow, and maybe it'll grow into it like a scrog sort of scenario. And yeah, I've tilled the soil, used Osmocote, added some organics, some old organic matter I had. I'm gonna add some biochar to the soil once I get some burning done. And yeah, add some biochar to the soil. I'm seeing a lot of flies around here too, which is odd. But previous to me adding the organic matter, I saw a lot of flies around the soil, and I didn't even know that up until yesterday that bugs were out yet. So it is peculiar out there. It's only May. It's only March 11th today. May. It's only March 11th, and you know, it still might freeze once more. Depends on how it goes. Usually, like March 12th around here. It's about when it starts getting better, but that's why that's why I had that special queen up and ready. Come outside. She's like 4 or 5 weeks old now. She should be ready to come out, but she just stunted. She stunted so hard. Must be the overwatering, I guess, maybe. Additionally, the FIM sort of capitalized on that stress out, and I don't know, sort of, as you can tell, stunted. And she would be growing right here, fine. Throw her out a little early, see what happens. But no, had to wait on her. Anyway, that's the plot. That's what we're gonna go with around here. And hopefully she gets enough sunlight coming in. I'll have to scope out tomorrow just to make sure that there's enough sunlight. But as you can tell, it's late in the day. Right now it is it's 4:12, and on 5 o'clock, sun's still up high. Daylight savings happened a few days ago, or whatever. But I just gotta stay out here, track it, make sure it's what I want. And if it's not what I want, then I'll just start the seedlings, or the clones, my bad. Start the clones inside, then bring them out once they've vegged to a certain degree. I don't want to slow up anything inside, though. I really don't. But if it's what needs to be done, then I will veg that inside pot to like 16 tops, which is a ton of weed. Tons and tons of weed, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're going for. I plan to use this cannabis to study fermentation a little bit. I'm not just smoking all of it, though I will, come to smoke a bunch of it, obviously. I just hope that the fermentation process goes well. It could go poorly sometimes, and thus I'll need to be working in small batches to ensure that certain fermentations go right. The main reason why I'm growing outside in this plot is to introduce lactobacillus in a heavier percent than just the ones I'm growing inside, to make sure that the lactobacillus gets around the plant and growing out. You see all these flies? It's crazy. Anyway, I will also be trying to introduce different bacteria to the other plants, to some of the other plants, while it grows out here. Like, that has yet to be decided, but I think I will introduce it to the soil, like partially, just to see if one plant does differently, and then I'll try to introduce it during fermentation. Again, just to make sure that bacteria is there. I know that that's the bacteria that I'm working with. Still have to decide where I'm going to get that bacteria, but I had a brief conversation with the professor who said that I could probably, get it from like a farmer's market that's selling like grapes. They use natural molds, natural yeasts to fight off molds and, making wine. So that could possibly happen. I think he said something about apples too, potentially. And I just have to look into it a little bit more. Initially, I wanted to try the bacteria that was in like sauerkraut or kimchi, but I think that's just going to be, for the first time I'm ever doing it, attempting it, might just invite a little bit too much of an issue. It might just be too long. It might require certain circumstances. I need to look into it a little bit further before I get to that point, but I'm really hopeful for the first step. Oh, and I talked to the Build-A-Soil guys, called them, and I had a conversation with the guy that sells the fermented milk product. I think the kefir. It was like, holy cow. He was super into God. He was like talking about God a lot, and he referenced God like 8 times in the conversation we had. He was very dismissive of my idea about the about the nature of the preservation of these volatile organic compounds. But he gave me more questions, really, saying some things that weren't technically accurate. So I emailed him like, I just had a great conversation with a really nice guy. And obviously I didn't push back in conversation with him. We had a nice conversation. He just seemed to be telling some things that weren't true, saying some things that weren't accurate. And I emailed him like, you guys got, I have more questions after the conversation. And like, I understand that you guys, and I just clarified 1 or 2 things, and then they were like, yeah, that's very interesting, in a response email. And they were like, yeah, very interesting. If you have any more questions, like sort of like fuck off type of thing. I was like, all right, cool. They're running a business though, so it's not like their whole thing is cannabis communication or whatever. It's not their main foray. They're teaching people their main gambit. They're teaching people how to grow weed, period. So not really. Maybe I should be reaching out to different people. Anyway, very nice guys, great business, great people there. And there's nothing wrong with talking about God either, but just didn't seem to have anything really to do with what we were talking about. Anyway, very nice fella, and I will consider buying his product.